Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a sunny June day and Alex and Sarah's 25th wedding anniversary went as planned. The couple prepared a huge party and invited nearly 200 friends and family to celebrate the momentous occasion. The party was held under a spacious circus tent and laughter filled the space. Alex stood at the entrance to the tent and greeted each guest with a smile. He was tall and well-maintained despite his age, and his silver-gray hair added a mature charm. Sarah, on the other hand, stood beside him and gracefully greeted the guests. She wore a long, light blue dress that accentuated her still delicate figure. The party went off without a hitch, with guests enjoying the food and drinks in the tent. As night fell, Alex and Sarah stood together, ready to renew their wedding vows. Alex looked deep into Sarah's eyes as if they were the only two people left in the world. Sarah, 25 years ago we made a promise to be together for life. Today, I want to promise you again that I will continue to love and cherish you forever. Alex's voice was a little choked, but her eyes were firm. Sarah looked back at Alex and whispered, "Alex, you are the most important person in my life. We've been through so much together these past 25 years, and I thank God for letting me meet you. I will continue to be with you until the end of time." Guests were moved to tears by the heartfelt vows. Alex and Sarah exchanged a heartfelt kiss, and amidst the applause and cheers, it was as if their love had once again been elevated. However, just below this seemingly perfect surface, a hint of gloom crept in. A few days after the party, Alex begins to notice something unusual about Sarah's behavior. She often excuses herself to go out, sometimes even staying away from home all day. Even stranger, her cell phone was always on silent, as if she was deliberately avoiding something. At first, Alex didn't think much of it. He thinks Sarah might just be preparing a surprise for him or busy with her career. After all, their children are grown and Sarah finally has more time to pursue her interests. However, as time went on, the doubts in Alex's mind grew stronger. One night, Sarah says she's going to a book club, but Alex overhears her getting all dressed up and wearing her favorite perfume. It couldn't help but remind Alex of when they were young and dating. Alex decides to follow Sarah to see what she's really up to. He drove behind Sarah's car, keeping a safe distance. Sarah's car ended up parked near a fancy hotel. Alex parked across the street and watched Sarah walk into the hotel lobby. Alex's heart raced, and he wondered if he should continue to follow him in. Just then he saw a man approach Sarah, and the two embraced passionately. That hug lasted far longer than a courtesy greeting between ordinary friends. Alex felt a wave of vertigo, and he couldn't believe his eyes. The man Alex recognizes as John Jablonski, an investor who regularly does business with Sarah. Alex had seen him a few times before, but never expected him to be this close to Sarah. Alex sat in the car, feeling his heart in his throat. He thought back to all of Sarah's unusual behavior over the past few months, and suddenly it all became clear. Those late-night phone calls, the suddenly canceled appointments, and Sarah's increasingly distant attitude toward him lately all had explanations. He continued to watch and saw Sarah enter the elevator with John. Alex's hands, gripping the steering wheel, were white with anger. He wanted to rush in and question Sarah, but reason stopped him. He wanted more evidence and needed to think calmly about what to do next. Alex drove home with the scene he had just seen replaying in his mind. He felt his world crumble in an instant. 25 years of marriage, all the joys and difficulties they'd shared, had been betrayed just like that? Back at home, Alex sits in the darkened living room, waiting for Sarah to return. He thought about their 3 children. Megan had just gotten married, Stuart was in college, and the youngest, Faye, was already a college student. They had always been a happy family, or at least Alex had always thought so. Now, the foundation of the family seems to be shaken. In the wee hours of the morning, Sarah finally returned. She entered softly, obviously not wanting to wake Alex. When she turned on the living room light, she was shocked to see Alex sitting there. "Alex, why are you still up?" Sarah tried to hide her surprise. Alex looked up with pain and anger in his eyes. Sarah, we need to talk. His voice was low and husky. Sarah seemed to realize what was going on and her face instantly turned pale. Alex, did something happen? Alex took a deep breath and tried to control his emotions. Where were you tonight, Sarah? Was it really book club? Sarah's expression became flustered as she began to stammer an explanation. I did go to book club and then had some drinks with some friends. Stop lying to me. Alex stood up suddenly, anger in his voice. I saw you with John Jablonski. You went into the Holiday Inn. Sarah, tell me the truth. What is your relationship? Sarah's face instantly turned pale and her hands began to shake. Alex, I can explain. But Alex no longer wanted to hear any more explanations. 25 years of trust completely collapsed in this moment, and he felt his heart being torn to pieces. This night is destined to be the darkest hour of their marriage and the beginning of an impending sea change in the trajectory of their lives. Sarah stood there, her face pale, her hands twisting the corners of her coat over and over. Her eyes flickered as if searching for the appropriate words to respond to Alex's questioning. The air in the living room seemed to freeze, with only the ticking of the wall clock as a relentless reminder of the passage of time. Alex felt a wave of vertigo as he took a deep breath and tried to keep his composure. Sarah, I'm going to ask you one more time. What is your relationship with John Jablonski? His voice was low and raspy, and every word felt like it was squeezed through his teeth. Sarah's tears finally came to her eyes. Alex, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to explain. Her voice trembled like a child who had done something wrong. Alex jolted to his feet and began pacing back and forth in the living room. He was filled with anger, pain, and confusion. Sarah, we've been married for 25 years. 25 years. And you just betrayed our marriage vows? His voice rose gradually, almost a growl. Sarah took a step back at Alex's roar. She tried to get closer to Alex, reaching out to touch his arm, but Alex quickly dodged it. Alex, please listen to me. It's not what you think. Not what I thought? Alex sneered. So tell me, what do I see? You and John Jablonski hugged intimately and then entered the hotel together. Sarah, do you take me for a fool? Sarah's tears welled up even more as she dropped to the couch and buried her face in her hands. Alex, I admit I made a mistake. But please believe me, it was just a momentary impulse. The person I love is always you. Alex felt a wave of nausea. The woman he once loved so much had become so strange to him at the moment. A whim? Sarah, how many whims have you had? How long has this been going on? Sarah looked up with fear in her eyes. Alex, Enough. Alex interrupted her. I don't want to hear your lies. From now on, you move to the guest room. I need time to think about whether there's any salvation in our marriage or not. With that said, Alex turned toward the bedroom, leaving Sarah alone in the living room, sobbing. He closed the door and leaned against the panel, feeling all the strength drained from his body. He slid to a sitting position, tears streaming down his face uncontrollably. A marriage of 25 years just fell apart overnight. Alex thought back to their 3 children and imagined how devastated they would be when they found out about it. He felt a surge of intense anger, not only at Sarah's betrayal, but at John Jablonski's hatred. The man, who used to show up at their anniversary parties, pretending to be a friendly guest while actually seducing his wife behind his back. Alex didn't go to work the next morning. He called the company and said he was sick and needed time off. In fact, he couldn't concentrate on his work at all. Sarah hadn't left the house either. She wandered around the house like a ghost, sneaking glances at Alex every now and then, but not daring to initiate conversation. Alex sat in his study and began to think back carefully on all of Sarah's unusual behavior over the past few months. He opened his computer and checked their joint account. It's a habit they've maintained over the years of their marriage in order to make it easier to manage the family's finances. At first, he didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, but when he scrutinized his credit card statements, some suspicious expenses caught his attention. There were several restaurant purchases of significant amounts that occurred on days when Alex was traveling or working late. There were also a few purchases from fancy stores that Alex didn't remember Sarah buying. Most alarmingly, there were two high-class hotel rooms on the same nights that Sarah claimed to have attended book clubs. Alex's heart sank. All of this evidence points to one horrifying truth. Sarah's infidelity was not a whim, but a well-planned, long-running betrayal. Just then, Alex gets a call from Tom, a coworker in the company's finance department. "Hey Alex, how are you doing? I heard you were sick." Tom asked with concern. "It's okay. It's probably a cold." Alex reluctantly replied. "That's good. By the way, I was looking for you to ask about that recent big deal with Jablonski. The terms of the contract looked bad for us, but Sarah insisted on moving forward. Do you know what's going on?" Alex felt a wave of vertigo. He recalls that Sarah is the company's treasurer and John Jablonski is a major investor. A horrible thought flashed through his mind. Had Sarah used the company's resources to John's benefit? "Tom, can you send me that contract to look at?" Alex said with forced composure. A few minutes later, Alex received an electronic copy of the contract. After a careful reading, he confirmed Tom's judgment that the terms of this contract were indeed very favorable to Jablonski and not optimal for their company. Alex felt a twinge of heaven. Not only did Sarah betray their marriage, she may have used her position to benefit her lover. This is no longer just a matter of morality. It involves the law and professional ethics. Just then Sarah knocked gently on the study door. "Alex, can I come in? We need to talk." Her voice sounded tired and desperate. Alex took a deep breath and tried to control his emotions. "Come in," he said coldly. Sarah walked into the den and instantly turned pale when she saw what was displayed on the computer screen. "Alex, what are you looking into?" Alex turned around and looked Sarah straight in the eye. "I'm looking into how you betrayed me, our family, and even your work ethic." "Sarah, tell me, just how long did your relationship with John Jablonski last? Did you use company resources for his benefit?" Sarah's legs gave out and she fell into a nearby chair. Her lips quivered as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she just lowered her head and wept silently. Alex felt a sharp pang of anger and betrayal. "Your silence has answered my question. Sarah, our marriage is over. I will immediately contact an attorney and begin divorce proceedings. As for your problems with the company, I'll report them to the board. You deal with the consequences yourself." Sarah jerked her head up, fear in her eyes. "Alex, please, don't do this. I know I made a big mistake, but please give me a chance. I can explain everything." Alex interrupted her. "Explain? Sarah, what else do you have to explain? You betrayed our 25-year marriage, and you used company resources for personal gain. These are unforgivable." Sarah broke down, and she fell to her knees in front of Alex, tears pouring down her face. "Alex, I'm really sorry. I don't know what came over me, John. He gave me something I couldn't get in you. But I swear I never stopped loving you. Please give me a chance to make up for my mistakes." Alex looked at Sarah, who was on her knees, with mixed feelings. At one time, how he loved this woman. They spent the best 25 years of their lives together and raised 3 children together. But now those fond memories are tainted by Sarah's betrayal. "Sarah." Alex's voice was filled with exhaustion and disappointment. "You know what? It's not your cheating that hurts me the most. Rather, it's your deception. Were you thinking of John when you read your vows at our anniversary party? Are you thinking of him every time you kiss me or hug me? You've turned our marriage, our family, into one big lie." Sarah was speechless and just kept shaking her head, unable to stop the tears. Alex stood up and walked toward the door. Before leaving the den, he turned back to Sarah for one last look. "I'll be moving out. You stay here and wait to be contacted by a lawyer. I want you to end this with dignity, at least for the sake of our children." With that said, Alex left the den, leaving Sarah alone and crying. He walked quickly to his bedroom and began to pack his bags. Every piece of clothing and every book brought back memories of him and Sarah. His hands were shaking, but he forced himself to continue. After packing her bags, Alex stood in front of her house and looked around. This home he had lived in for 25 years had become so foreign at the moment. He took a deep breath and dragged his suitcase out of the house. Alex drove to his father's house. The old man sat in his wheelchair and looked at his suddenly appearing son in surprise. Alex, did something happen? Alex dropped his bags and knelt in front of his father, resting his head on the older man's knee. The emotions that had built up over the years finally erupted, and he began to cry loudly. The old man gently stroked his son's back and offered silent comfort. After crying, Alex felt a little lighter. He looked up into his father's concerned eyes and began to recount what had happened. The old man was silent for a long time after hearing this. Finally, he shook Alex's hand and said, "Son, I'm sorry you're going through this. But remember, you didn't do anything wrong. Sarah's choices are her own, not your fault. Now, you need time to heal your wounds." Alex nodded, grateful for her father's understanding and support. "Dad, can I stay here for a while?" "Of course, this will always be your home." The old man smiled kindly. And with that, Alex began his new life. During the day, he goes to work and tries to take care of the company's business while also preparing to report Sarah's inappropriate behavior to the board. At night, he returns to his father's house to take care of the old man, and at the same time uses it to heal his own heart. However, the anger and pain inside Alex did not lessen with time. Whenever he thought of Sarah's betrayal, of John Jablonski's hypocritical face, he felt a strong pang of vengeance. He began to think about how he could make those who had hurt him pay. A plan was taking shape in Alex's mind. He decides to not only expose Sarah's infidelity, but to completely destroy John Jablonski's career and reputation. The plan might cost him something, but Alex didn't care anymore. As far as he was concerned, revenge was the only way to quell the anger within him. With that, Alex begins his plan for revenge, and a storm is coming that will change everyone's lives. Alex stood at the window of his father's house, staring out into the darkness. The night was late, but he had no sleep. The events of the past few weeks were like a nightmare that kept replaying in his mind. Sarah's betrayal, John Jablonski's hypocrisy, and the sickening business dealings, all of which had built up into an unquenchable rage in his heart. He turned to look at the desk, which was littered with various papers and notes. These days, Alex has been gathering information for his revenge plan. He knew that the next move could cost him a lot, but he didn't care anymore. As far as he was concerned, the only way to quell the pain he felt inside was to make those who had hurt him pay. Alex took a deep breath and slowly walked over to the desk and sat down. He opened his laptop and began to organize all the information he had gathered. First is the evidence of Sarah's inappropriate relationship with John, which is mostly circumstantial but enough to plant seeds of doubt in people's minds. Then there were the questionable business deals, and Alex had carefully analyzed every contract to find all the clauses that worked in Jablonski's favor and against their company. Alex's eyes turned cold and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. He knew that it was not enough to reveal this. He wants more than just to punish Sarah and John. He wants to completely destroy their lives, just as they have destroyed his. The next morning, Alex arrived at work early. He went straight to the CEO's office and asked for an urgent meeting. "Alex, what happened?" CEO David asked with some concern as he looked at Alex's serious expression. Alex took a deep breath and began to state what he had found. He explained in detail how Sarah used her position to benefit John Jablonski and how she entered into contracts that were detrimental to the company. He produced all the evidence, including suspicious email exchanges and questionable contract terms. David's face became incredibly serious as he listened. "Alex, this is a very serious accusation. If true, we must act immediately." Alex nodded. "I know it's hard to believe, but all the evidence is here. I recommend that we suspend Sarah immediately and conduct a full review of all transactions involving Jablonski." David agreed to Alex's suggestion. Over the next few days, the company launched an internal investigation. Sarah was suspended and all contracts with Jablonski were revisited. Meanwhile, Alex begins to execute the next step in his plan. He contacted a few friends with connections in the media world and began to selectively leak some information. At first, there were just some vague hints that some executives were suspected of using their positions for personal gain. Then, as the company's investigation deepened, more details were revealed. Alex carefully maneuvered the flow of information to ensure that Sarah and John Jablonski's names gradually surfaced. He used his contacts in the business world to spread rumors and speculation. Soon, the whole business world was talking about it. John Jablonski is starting to feel the pressure. His company's stock price began to fall, and investor trust in him plummeted. Alex notices that John begins to appear frequently in various media outlets in an attempt to clear his name. But Alex had already prepared a response. He approached a small investor who had been defrauded by John Jablonski and convinced him to come forward publicly to testify against John's wrongdoing. The investor's story quickly drew public sympathy, and more people who claimed to have been duped by John began to come forward. John's reputation has been dealt a fatal blow. Meanwhile, Sarah's situation is getting worse. The results of the company's investigation confirmed Alex's allegations, and Sarah was summarily dismissed and faced possible legal action. Her professional reputation was completely ruined. Alex watched coldly as this unfolded. He felt a twisted sense of satisfaction every time he read a newspaper story about the plummeting stock price of John Jablonski's company or heard someone talk about how Sarah had fallen from a respected executive to a street rat. However, Alex wasn't satisfied with that. He knew it would take more to completely destroy John and Sarah. He began collecting dark information about John Jablonski's private life. Through the help of some private investigators, Alex discovers that John is not only having an inappropriate relationship with Sarah, but is also having affairs with several married women. Alex sent this information anonymously to John's wife and the women's husbands. Soon John's marriage is in crisis and his social circle begins to crumble. The husbands of several victims have threatened to sue John, and some have even threatened to physically harm John. John Jablonski's life is in complete disarray. His company is on the verge of bankruptcy, his marriage is on the verge of breaking up, and his standing in social circles is in tatters. Eventually, under great pressure, John chose to flee. He sold all his possessions, left the city, and disappeared into obscurity. For Sarah, Alex's revenge is just as ruthless. He made sure that Sarah's misbehavior was widely reported, not only in business circles, but also in her social circles. Sarah soon finds herself the object of everyone's avoidance. Her friends have cut ties with her, and she has been removed from various social events and charitable organizations she attends. Sarah tries to reach out to Alex in hopes of reconciliation, but Alex completely ignores all her attempts. He watches coldly as Sarah's life crumbles step by step, just as she destroyed their marriage in the first place. However, Alex's vindictive behavior also has unintended consequences. His children began to alienate him, believing his behavior to be too extreme. Megan even told Alex outright that she couldn't identify with her father. Stuart, on the other hand, cuts off contact with Alex completely. Only the youngest daughter, Faye, still has contact with Alex from time to time, but has also become noticeably distant. Alex's friends and coworkers also begin to look at him differently. Though no one had openly accused him, Alex could sense a change in their attitudes. Some began to avoid being alone with him for fear of being caught up in the furor. Nonetheless, Alex doesn't regret his behavior. As far as he's concerned, it's all a well-deserved punishment for Sarah and John. They ruined his life. He's just returning the favor. As time went on, the storm subsided. John Jablonski has disappeared without a trace, and Sarah has moved out of the city to try to make a fresh start elsewhere. Alex's life is outwardly peaceful, but the wounds inside are far from healed. However, Alex doesn't stop where he's going. Despite the fact that the revenge program was complete, he felt that something was still missing in his life. One day, while organizing his office, he stumbled upon a book on architectural design that he had bought years ago. Flipping through the pages, Alex suddenly recalled his own youthful love of architecture. This discovery gave Alex an idea. Perhaps it's time to re-examine your life. He began to think about what he could do besides revenge. Alex decided to use his free time to relearn architectural design, which gave him a sense of excitement and enthusiasm that he hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, Alex notices a new investment advisor, Olivia, at the firm. She's smart, competent, and doesn't seem to care about Alex's past. There were times when they worked late together to discuss new investment strategies. Alex found himself beginning to look forward to these work sessions, though he wasn't sure what that feeling meant yet. Alex's oldest daughter, Megan, has also brought some changes. Even though she didn't agree with her father, she seemed to understand Alex's inner pain. She began to contact Alex more frequently, sometimes even bringing her children to visit their grandfather. These brief moments of family time gave Alex a touch of warmth. Alex stood on his balcony one night, looking out over the city lights. He realizes that despite the past few months being filled with anger and vengeance, life goes on. His revenge may be over, but the story of his life is far from over. Alex took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air. He knows that there is a long road ahead and many more challenges. But at this moment, he sensed a subtle change. Perhaps it's time to start a new chapter. Just then, Alex's cell phone vibrated. It's a text message from Olivia asking if he'd like to attend an architectural exhibition over the weekend. Alex looked at the screen of his cell phone, the corners of his mouth involuntarily lifting into a smile. He replied, "Sure, I'd love to." Putting his cell phone down, Alex looked away again. The lights of the city seemed brighter than before. Although he didn't know what the future held, he sensed that something new and exciting might be happening. With the arrival of spring, Alex's life is beginning to take on a new dimension. That weekend's architectural exhibition became a turning point. At the exhibition, Alex not only rekindled his passion for architectural design, but also unexpectedly met an old friend, Mark, who is the head of a well-known architectural firm. "Alex, is it really you?" Surprised, Mark said, "I heard about what happened to you recently, and I'm sorry. But it's great to see that you're still interested in architecture." Alex smiled and shook Mark's hand. "Yeah, I recently rediscovered this old hobby. I didn't expect to meet you here." The two chatted at length and Mark learned that Alex was teaching himself architectural design. "Listen, Alex," Mark says, "our firm has recently been looking for design consultants with a business background. Although you don't have a formal degree in architecture, your business experience coupled with a passion for building could be just what we need. Would you be interested in coming to our company as a part-time consultant?" Alex felt a surge of excitement, but he was also a little hesitant. "Mark, I'm interested. But, you know what's been going on with me lately? I'm not sure it affects." Mark interrupted. "Alex, we all have a past. What matters is the present and the future. You can try it first if you want." And with that, Alex began his new career. It was only part-time, but it gave him a chance to start over. 2 days a week, he would go to work for Mark's company, applying his business insights to construction projects. The rest of the time, he continues to work for his old company, but has begun to consider the possibility of a career change. Meanwhile, Alex and Olivia's relationship is slowly developing. They started having lunch together regularly and discussing topics outside of work. Alex finds that Olivia is not only smart and capable, but also has a unique sense of humor. Once, when they were discussing a particularly tricky project, Olivia suddenly smiled and said, "You know what, Alex? Sometimes I think solving business problems is like playing Tetris. You have to make quick decisions and put every piece in the right place, or everything falls apart." The analogy made Alex chuckle. He realized that this was the first time he'd genuinely laughed since what happened to Sarah. However, not everything is going well. Alex's relationship with the kids is still strained. Although Megan begins to try to repair her relationship with her father, Stuart still refuses to contact Alex. The youngest daughter, Faye, on the other hand, seems to be caught in a dilemma, not knowing how to balance her feelings for her parents. One day, Megan brings her children to visit Alex. As Alex picked up his little grandson, Megan suddenly said, "Dad, I know you've been through a lot, but have you ever thought about forgiving Mom?" Alex froze. He took a deep breath and tried to control his emotions. "Megan, it's not an easy question. Your mom. She hurt me. She hurt our family." Megan gently took her father's hand. "I know, Dad. But look at you. You're starting your life over. Maybe forgive not only for her, but for yourself?" Alex didn't answer, but Megan's words sent ripples through him. That night, he couldn't sleep for a long time, pondering his daughter's words. The next day at work, Alex is distracted. Olivia noticed his abnormality and asked with concern, "Alex, are you okay? It looks preoccupied." Alex hesitates, then decides to open up to Olivia. He told her about Megan's advice and his own internal struggle. Olivia listened intently, then said, "Alex, forgiveness is indeed a difficult process. But have you ever thought that maybe forgiveness isn't so much about you approving of the other person's behavior as it is about freeing yourself from past hurts?" The words were like a bolt of lightning that illuminated the darkness inside Alex. He begins to realize that while his vengeance has punished Sarah and John, it has also led him into a quagmire of hatred. Over the next few days, Alex begins to try to look at the past in a different way. He doesn't immediately forgive Sarah, but he begins to work on letting go of those negative feelings. He became more involved in architectural design and found that the process of creation helped him to forget the pain of the past for a while. Alex has also begun to get more involved in charitable activities. He joined an organization that helps children from divorced families, hoping to heal himself by helping others. At one event, he meets a young boy named Tommy whose parents have also just gotten divorced. Alex spends a lot of time with Tommy, and in the process, he slowly learns how to deal with his emotional trauma. As time went on, Alex felt like he was changing little by little. Instead of always dwelling on his resentment of the past, he began to look forward to the future. His relationship with Olivia is also growing steadily, though they're both careful not to rush it. One day, Alex received an unexpected phone call. "It's Sarah." "Alex." Sarah's voice sounded a little shaky. "I know you probably don't want to hear my voice, but I wanted to tell you that I'm really sorry for everything I've done. I know apologizing probably won't make up for anything, but I want you to know that I really do regret it." Alex was silent for a long time. Finally, he whispered, "Thank you for apologizing, Sarah. I need time to digest this." After hanging up the phone, Alex felt a strange sense of relief. He realizes that while he may never fully forgive Sarah, he's ready to let go of the past and move on. That weekend, Alex decided to take Olivia to see a new project he was involved in designing. As they stood on the construction site and Alex enthusiastically explained his design concept, Olivia suddenly said, "You know what, Alex? I love watching you when you talk about architecture. Your whole being glows." Alex turned his head and looked Olivia in the eye. In that moment, he felt a long-lost sense of happiness. He knows that while the wounds of the past may never fully go away, the future is still full of hope and possibilities. Just then, Alex's cell phone rang. It was a text from Megan asking if he'd like to have dinner with the whole family next week, Stuart included. Alex looked at his cell phone screen, then at Olivia beside him, then at the building under construction in the distance. He took a deep breath and a smile curled the corners of his mouth. Perhaps a new chapter really has begun. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.